Hi everybody. So in this video I'm going to go into materials and adding colored materials to your models. Um, so let's start with a shape. I'm going to hold down my primitives area here and I'm going to just choose a sphere. Okay, and you can see that the sphere doesn't have much resolution right now. It kind of looks a little bit hard-edged. If you make sure that you're selected on the word sphere up in the Objects Manager, down below we have the options for our sphere, and I'm just going to add some more segments. You can do that by typing a number in, or you can just click up the arrow here, up or down. I'm going to click this up, and how about, let's go to 35. Okay, so to add a colored material, you can see it starts with a default material, this gray. But to add your own, you'll notice down here there's this big gray blank area. This is our materials editor. And if I double click anywhere in this gray area, you'll see a material tag show up here. Now you can change things in here and you can work options here. I recommend not doing that. I recommend double clicking this because you'll get some more options to work with your materials. So let's double click this right here. This is our materials editor. I'm going to slide it over so I can see what's happening. And let's just make sure that we're on the word color. Don't click any of these dots. These are for animation. We'll get into that later. So if you're going to just make sure you're not touching these. Just be on the word color, and you can see right here in we can slide the. I'm on this HSV, so it's a hue, saturation, and value slider. That's the best one to use. This is a Cinema 4021, so this is as a default. It used to be this as a default, which is very difficult to mix. Make sure you're on the HSV. So I can slide around, I can find a color that I'm interested in by using my sliders. And once I'm good with that, I can close this out. And how do I get the texture to the model? Well, I'm going to drag this little icon here of the texture and drop it, just drag and drop onto my shape, and automatically it will show up. What if I want to render this out just as a preview to see what this really looks like without the wireframe and the grid? Well, right up here, this little video clapboard on the left is the preview render button. So I'm going to click that, and you can see this is now just a preview of my render, just so I can see what this texture is looking like. You'll notice it does have this shine. We'll turn that off. I'll show you how to do that next. How do we get out of this rendered view though? You just need to click anywhere on the screen and that will go away. I am going to select the sphere though, and let's look at removing that shine. So if I double click, you can see I can bring this back up, my materials editor. I'm still on color, and down below color right here is reflectance. This is what gives it that shine, that default shine on my material. If I turn this checkbox off, you'll notice that that is not shining anymore in the preview, and I can render while this is still up. This is great. I can just click render and preview this, and you can see that it is turned off. So now there's no more shine. There's a few other things that you can do in materials, just some basic things for now. I can turn on glow. So if I turn on glow, I can tell it how much I want it to glow. So maybe I'll just move up the radius just so we can see it to 40 instead of 10. And I'm going to preview render. And you can see now I have a glowing texture. I'll turn that off, and let's look at bumps. So right over here, there's something called bump mapping. And if I check the box for bump, you'll notice nothing happens to the preview. I'll even render that. Nothing has happened yet until we choose a texture. So I'm on the word bump right now. I'm going to choose a texture. I'll just choose a basic one called noise for now. And there's a strength slider you can see. And if I render, you can see I've added this bump. I can make it stronger or less strong by just moving the slider. I'll turn bump off. Now this is important. If you want to change the color, you need to make sure that you're back on color. And I could do that. I could always just update this texture and it'll update whatever model that texture is on. Let's look at making a second texture. You can make as many textures as you want in this little area here by double clicking in the blank area. So I can just make a whole bunch. I'm going to try a different color for a different material. So maybe I'll move into a red. Okay, and I like this. I'll close it out. I'm going to drag the red texture on top of this green one, and you'll notice it's red. If I preview render, it's going to be red. But up here, you'll notice that the Objects Manager, I have a sphere that has a green and a red texture. I'm not seeing the green one anymore. This is the one that I've dragged on last. Sometimes you have models that have a bunch of textures that you just kind of drag on as you go. You can remove a texture. So let's say I didn't want the red one here. I can click on the little icon and press delete. And it'll go to the one behind that one, which is this green one. I'll undo that. I could also say, well, I want the red and I don't need this green one anymore, so I could delete that. If I make a second shape, how about a cube? I could move this over with the move tool, and I will drag the green texture onto this one. So you can see by using my Materials Manager, I can manage my materials and drag them onto the shapes that I want. Sometimes you have a scene that has many shapes and it's hard to drag and drop to the correct shape without dragging it onto something different. There's another way of adding a texture to a model, and that would be to drag and drop your material to the Objects Manager, and you can drag it on any of the shapes that you see in your list. So I'm going to drag this gray texture to the sphere, the word sphere, and drop it. And you can see this is a whole other way of dragging textures and adding them to your models. I hope this works for you. Give it a try, and good luck.